Hello and welcome. My name is Robert Daniels. I'm a film critic and contributor to RodReaper.com, The Playlist, The New York Times, and Polygon. I am thrilled to be your moderator for the journey to Wolfwalkers, where we'll be exploring the world of handcrafted animated techniques with the creative team behind this hit animated feature. Allow me to introduce today's panelists. Today we have Tomm Moore and Ross Stewart, the directors. We also have Maria Pareja, the production designer. We have Federico Pirovano, character designer, Philippe Fontaine and Sebastien Marquilly, sound editors, Richie Cody, the editor, and Tatiana Mazzei, the clean animation lead artist. But first up, we'll watch a behind the scenes clip from the film. Thank you guys for this incredible film. And just even from that video, the first question I have is, how did each of the departments collaborate to make this film? Specifically, you, Tomm and Ross, if you can answer this question.
I think Ross and I wanted it to be a collaboration. I mean, it was already a collaboration between Ross and I as directors, and we wanted to extend that out to all the departments. So the big ask we had of everyone was that they approach it as filmmakers and bring something of themselves to it. So each department was sort of like passing the baton creatively and trying to work towards creating something cohesive that looked like it was all drawn by one hand in the end.
You're talking about drawing by one hand. The film obviously feels so handcrafted. And I'm wondering, how did you both approach, Tomm and Ross, how did you both approach the look of the film? How did you build upon the art, the artistic techniques that you've used in your previous films?
Well, I think Tomm himself had learned, through trial and error and mistakes and things that we could have done and things that we weren't able to do from previous films. Mm-hmm. And so when we started developing the story, we had an idea of the way that the visuals could go. These two contrasting worlds, but with every artist that came on board, it just got amped up and up and up. Like our initial vision was so below what the final film ended up like, and that's thanks to all the departments and all the artists, like the people that we have here with us today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then same thing for both Tomm and Ross. I'm wondering if you could walk us through what the actual hand drawing process was.
Well, it all started with concepts that Ross and myself were doing. We had a period of time while we were working on the script with Will Collins, and that's where Ross and I, because we're both coming from an art background ourselves, we're doing a lot of character designs and concept art, and working with some concept artists internationally that were people that we admired, because we wanted to bring a little bit of new ideas to this project that we hadn't done in previous ones. Because Ross and myself, I suppose, were getting a bit tired of just our own designs, and we wanted to see other people's interpretation. And that's why it was lovely then, because that opened out into the storyboard process, and the storyboard team brought a lot to it. The concept art department and the scene illustrations were a team of amazing illustrators from all different kinds of backgrounds, and they brought a lot to it as well and gave us ideas. And while Will was crafting the script and the storyboard, the ideas that were coming from the artists were informing the story itself. And then because we wanted it to have these very clear styles between the town and the forest, and between when a character was feeling like happy or when a character was feeling sad, we wanted that reflected in the line work. It meant that there was a lot more for like Maria as a art director, for Fede as a character designer, and Tatiana as a final line cleanup artist to bring to it, and all their teams as well kind of were, it's like a kind of telescope where at the start, it's very wide, there's lots of ideas and we narrow down, but at each stage, there's still so many creative decisions to be made. So once it goes from storyboards, we go through a stage, we pose out the main character, the main poses, and Richie would have been editing together the storyboard into like a kind of a comic book, but timed out. So it was like a black and white version of the movie before we even started animating. And then once we'd
Hmm.
recorded the voices, we did the rough animation. That went to the final line cleanup animation department. And at the same time, the backgrounds were being created first in line and then with watercolor and paints.
So everything is hand drawn, really. I mean, like, even if the department is working in TV Paint in a on a Cintiq, they're still drawing on the Cintiq. And then some departments are purely like on paper. Like the background line department was just all pencil and ink work on paper. But everyone is drawing by hand, so it's an entirely hand drawn movie. Yeah.
Hmm. And for Maria, Federico, and Tatiana, I'm wondering what challenges you guys face bringing this kind of this story into a 2D world. And if Maria, if you want to start.
Yeah, I think because of the style that they were planning to have, it was already like a 2D, like it was fitting perfectly for 2D. Um,
Hmm.
I think one of the biggest challenge that we find at the beginning, it was to integrate properly the characters with the backgrounds because of the flatness of the characters and having so much texture on the backgrounds, either in the town and in the forest. It was sometimes tricky to make them fit and not having them looking like stickers on top of a background. So that was a little bit of a challenge, but I think at the end, thanks to the help of the cleanup department doing that amazing job with the lines and then comp with the texturing in the colors and stuff like that, we managed to have them all together properly. So I think that was.
Hmm. Do you have anything else to add, Federico and Tatiana?
I think that one of the challenges was that even if we were drawing a lot from the original, the other cartoon saloon film styles, there was also a clear intention to try to push it further. So in some way, sometimes it even got flatter than before. If you look, for example, in background characters that almost get similar to mosaics instead. But if you look at most of the characters, they often are a bit more two-dimensional than previous movies. But at the same time, we didn't want to go full two-dimensional, so we spent some time searching for a balance between the two, where we had to decide arbitrarily which lines would represent a 3D volume and which other instead we would flatten and make it perfectly graphical.
I think for us, for clean animation, we work with hand drawing, we work with 2D, but this film is just any challenge that you can think of for clean animation. That's what we have. So besides the regular, trying to get the characters looking right and like they're being drawn by the same person, basically keeping it consistent. You're worried about the lines there. It's a two different line styles plus the wolf vision style. So there's the 3 different styles in there. So different ways of drawing, and basically this whole process, this whole line styles that had to be created just for that, and get these flat characters and make them move in a 3D space as well, and how that works. It's the big challenge.
I think a lot that what we asked of the clean animation department is normally not asked in animation, where they're just asked to be consistent with the line. Whereas for this, we wanted a lot of variation, and for them to think a little bit more like comic book inkers or picture book illustrators, where their line would adapt depending on the mood of the character or the area in the environment that they were from. So like Tatiana and her team had to have a line that was very hard and clean for whenever they were in the town, but in the forest she was trying to keep things so scratchy that we even saw the construction lines underneath, and then to have a whole spectrum in between both, especially for our main character Robin, who had to kind of go from being part of the town to being part of the forest, back to the town. And you know, there was a whole like line journey, like a character arc in the way the lines were drawn by Tatiana and the team, John and everyone on her team. So it was a big ask, I think. But they did a great job.
He did a fantastic job. One of the things that first kind of like drew me to the film is just the wolves themselves and how emotive they are, and in certain points they're more brooding and their expressions seem a little bit more, I guess hypnotic. And then at other points they're extremely expressive and extremely giddy and happy. And I'm wondering, how'd you guys find the balance in animating them, Maria?
I don't have any idea. Maybe Federico can tell you
Fede
better.
was our wolf guy. Look at Fede. Look at this man. He's obviously a wolf.
So when I arrived, there were already concept for the wolves, but they were kind of like inspired by the wolves that you can see in Secret of Kells, that would be a bit more like machines, with one mono-dimensional personality. And because we were in the beginning of pre-production, then there was a lot of space to still experiment. So I did a bunch of things, and I've always had animals in my life. So I kind of like just took inspiration from just seeing my cats or my dogs just playing around, and just wanted that wide radar of expression that, a natural animal is always able to express, from passing from really goofy to really scary from a moment to the other. If someone had a cat, they know what I'm talking about. And then, they Tomm and Ross liked them, and they liked the fact that they were also goofy at times. So it was really about the fact that, for example, if you look at the design of the wolves, one of the elements that can make them scary and goofy at the same time is their big snout. A big snout means, can be very inquisitive and cuddly, and then it also means giant teeth, right? So it's very easy to pass between the two in design. And also one thing that helped a lot was the choice when they get hypnotized, that their iris disappears in a color, and that gives you the feeling that the personality kind of like has disappeared and they are controlled by a more powerful force of kind.
Yeah, from a story point of view, I mean, like the wolves had to be like monsters that the villagers would be scared of. But then as Robin goes into the wolf den and finds them as a family, Maeve's family, then each character would have a unique personality and they become much more amiable. So they do have like a very wide gamut of like emotions to express within the film. So Federico and the rest of the designers had a huge task to display like all of that, to try and get all of those different character emotions out.
The other thing about the wolves was that sometimes what Fede really hit on, which I loved, was that sometimes they could be just like brushstrokes. They could just be really organic, or like a big wave of water moving through. And then other times they're like, fully articulated quadrupeds moving independently and fairly menacingly. So that kind of blend of two ways of articulating the movement from early tests that Fede did was a big part of what the final wolves ended up like in the movie.
Mm-hmm. And the wolf vision that we see in the film, obviously looks fantastic. And I'm wondering, what were the challenges in animating that?
Well, I was just going to say that Wolf Vision was like almost like a separate department with our main Wolf Vision director, Evan McNamara, who's an animation director himself, in charge. So he kind of helped develop the whole Wolf Vision concept with Tomm and myself, and then put in a huge amount of man hours, because Wolf Vision, it starts off, it's kind of like reverse engineering. It uses like the latest technology in like Oculus and VR and Blender to create these environments, have these fly throughs, and then each frame is printed out and hand rendered on paper. Like the printout is used as a guide, but like, so if a camera swipes and there's a blur, they will draw that blur with charcoal and pencil, and so at the end of each scene there's a huge stack of paper with a fully rendered background, fully rendered character and effects and everything, beautifully drawn on each piece of paper. So you know, the whole length of production of the movie, that's what we set aside for Wolf Vision. So Wolf Vision is only about 3 or 3.5 minutes, but it took the whole length of production to make it. So it's a huge amount of work. But yeah, Tatiana's team helped out on some of that. So maybe she can give you some of the painful stories of all that.
I worked on the characters of Wolf Vision, so there was a team working on the backgrounds already, but then we had to get the characters on top of that. So they were so a sketch, let's say, was animated digitally, and then my job was basically to get that and make it look like, you know, it's blend with that background, to like as if it's a charcoal drawing. So it was very challenging at first when Tomm and Ross came and said, "Oh, we would like to look like this." It's like, okay, but it's great as well to, you know, to be given something like that, because you can have lots of fun with it. And it was definitely fun, because you basically can put a lot of energy in the drawing. You still want the animation to work, and you still want the movement to read. And sometimes the movement is, you know, the one drawing is very close to the next. So it's that balance in between, giving it lots of energy, but it's still making it work as animation. Yeah, it's a bit of challenge, but lots of fun. Once you get into it, you just keep going.
And I think one of the best sections that uses Wolf Vision is the running with the wolves scene, and I just think the editing on that scene is just so sharp, and the way that it's able to blend the Wolf Vision with the forest and explore the entire forest. And I'm wondering, Richie, if you could kind of elaborate on how you stitched that whole scene together.
Sure. Well, it was back during the storyboarding process that Tomm mentioned earlier. We had a board artist, Guillaume, who was working on that sequence, and Tomm came to Guillaume with the song "Running with the Wolves." I'm not sure how you found it exactly, but you kind of brought it to him and said, "Storyboard to this." So he did. He worked away with the song and made some beautiful boards to it, and brought it to us, and it kind of sat as his version in the edit for a really, really long time, probably for about 6 months, until we kind of hit some time trouble. It was a little bit too long. It was beautiful and it was joyous and it was exactly what we needed at that moment, but it was just too long to justify what it was doing right there. So I took a hatchet to it and I chopped it down and tried to keep the essence of what it was, but while bringing it down to a kind of a more manageable length. And when I told like Maria and Ross and Tomm that I was working on it, I was like, "No, you can't cut that. It's the best sequence in the movie." But when I finally showed them the version that I came up with, they couldn't tell the difference. So I managed to cut maybe 45 seconds out of the song and without them noticing, which was, I think, pretty good. But it really, it needed to be shorter. But that kind of pressure to take something that's beautiful and working and slim it down and to trim it down as much as possible is a really important process to make sure that you're getting kind of the best film that you can.
What was the challenge with that as well is that not only did you have to edit the storyboards, Richie, you also had to edit the song.
Yeah. I did manage to cut down the song a little bit, and then I heard the re-record when the film finally came out, and it was beautiful. It was absolutely flawless. So the sound and music team did a really spectacular job with it. And, I'm just glad I didn't. You didn't
make Aurora angry anyway.
Yeah,
Aurora
exactly.
didn't send you any hate mail going,
No.
butchered my song.
No, but in terms of kind of the story process of that, it was very much it was really about I approached it from the point of view of Robin exploring that new world, and really tried to make sure that all of the choices I was making, the things that could go were the things where it wasn't from her point of view, or it wasn't kind of centered around her. Like Maeve and the wolves own this part of the world, own the night, and Robin is the newcomer. So approaching it from that was kind of get me the way into that sequence, and really was what allowed me to work on it that way.
And then from an animation standpoint, because that scene, it feels like it almost goes beyond 2D, almost feels 3D in a way. And I'm wondering if you guys could go over just the challenges of composing that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that some of the backgrounds were not well vision, but still needed to feel a little bit three-dimensional. So we had to go over the 3D that Evan prepared and rendering on TV Paint to not have the exact same feeling that we had for the well vision. So it was a little bit of work of animating backgrounds, but it was very, very nice. But overall, it still keeps the flatness, but mixed with that three-dimensional space.
The characters were still fully animated in 2D. So the animators, they had this three-dimensional guide of the space of where they should be, but they had to basically, they're madly skilled animators who can just make this wolf turn in any direction, and but completely animated and hand drawn 2D.
I think 2D is the worst phrase ever. It's hand drawn, but it's not 2D. It's not 2D. It's funny. Everyone says 2D, like I do as well, but it's not 2D. It's like three-dimensional, moving in space. Sometimes it's 2.5D, as Fede says, for some of the kind of mosaic background characters. But it's hand drawn is the thing that makes it different. But you've got all the D's possible in hand drawn.
Oh yes, you get a D, you get a D. And Richie, just I guess the overall editing of the film, because I mean, the tones, it feels like, changes so wildly, but it all feels very fluid. And I'm wondering if you could go more into just the construction of it.
The way Tomm and Ross built their storyboard team was they picked some really, really incredible filmmakers in their own right. And all of these board artists worked on these sequences and brought just these incredibly strong cinematographic sequences to the table that really stood on their own, but didn't necessarily gel together into one film. So a lot of what I was doing was really just kind of smoothing the edges between those sequences and making sure that the energy and the atmosphere that was already there flowed from one into the other. So it wasn't so much a construction as a blend of trying to make sure that the language that we established in the start of the film, we kept it consistent all the way through, in terms of camera, in terms of the way the characters were, and really that's pretty much it.
I think really... Richie, I think you're being too humble, because I remember quite a few times Tomm and myself would go into the edit room and you would have added in panels cut up from other panels, and done storyboarding yourself, really, cut out little characters, move them around, put on extra backgrounds, and really created your own storyboards in there. So I think you'd almost be part of that storyboard team, because you do take a lot of what they have, but you're morphing it and you're blending it and you're mixing it up as well on your own right.
There was a really great flow of just information between me and the board artists. I was able to like talk to them and almost argue about what the sequences were and what the sequences needed. And it's a great way to make sure that the best idea makes it through, is to have to discuss it with somebody who feels about it as passionately as you do, but the complete opposite thing. If you don't, sometimes they were right.
We had
probably more often than I would.
We had a whiteboard beside Richie's edit space in his edit room, and Ross and I and Richie and the storyboard artist and maybe Mark Mullery, the assistant director, would be in there. We had some, I suppose Walt Disney called it the sweat box. You know, we had those like hard meetings where we really beat out the sequence and talked about what it was, and everyone was drawing on the whiteboard or trying to draw what they had in mind. And then at the end of it, the storyboard artist would go back out and try and bring back what was needed to get the sequence right. So Richie was really interactive. I really feel like everybody took on a role of being a kind of co-director in those meetings and really cared about the movie, which made Ross and I feel we were in really good hands, you know.
And I'm very interested in the way that sound works in this film. Take like when they're in the town and you have this kind of this tapestry of townspeople that you hear in the background, and as you know, Robin's talking or anyone's speaking, and Philippe and Sebastien, I'm wondering if you could kind of expound on that.
Yeah, I actually here for the backgrounds, we tried to make the background like another character. So we needed all the background to have their own personalities as well. I mean, for the woods and the forest and the city, and the problem. Yeah, one of the challenging points in this movie is that sometimes you have a lot of things happening at the same time. So here, one of Sebastian's job as a sound supervisor was to take all the layers and first of all make a little bit room in everything. And sometimes you want to hear something up front, sometimes you want to hear something a little bit further. So that was his first part of the job. Yeah. And then of course we had the re-recording mixer who had to do the final touch about all those different layers there.
To focus on what we need to hear, you know.
Mm-hmm. And the sound of the wolves too. I'm wondering what the process was to find that sound.
Yeah, actually here as well, the wolves, like we said before, they have a lot of personalities. Sometimes it can be goofy, sometimes it can be really scary. So we needed to underline these personalities and make them sound real, even if they're not real. They're just hand drawing characters on the screen, but that's also challenging. And for instance, for the wolf pack,
it's a real there is real wolf recording for the wolf pack, and for the specific and the others we use sometimes dogs, puppies, you know. It's a little bit we have more empathy, you know, with little puppies and little dogs.
And what was the process like working with the voice actors on their recordings?
Because actually we didn't met all the actors. All we had was the sound recording. So that's maybe more question for Tom and Ross. But
because the voice was recorded 3 years before we start.
but we had a lot of crowd recording wallas and specifics, so that was also another part of the job for the dialogue the dialogue editor Annelise. She needed to give life to all the crowds with the re-recording, you know? And and specifics, and especially also the nice accents that have all these characters when they're shouting and everything.
that was interesting with hand-drawn animation as well, and I think it's the same for most animation outside of Japan, is the voices are recorded first. So Jean McGrath, who'd recorded, who also worked on Secret of Kells and Song of the Sea with me, came to Grouse Lodge where we recorded the actors. And what we did a little bit different than other animated features, I guess, is that we kind of had all the actors together, so that Sean Bean was playing opposite Simon McBurney, and the girls were playing opposite each other, and Maria Doyle Kennedy, Maeve's mum, is there with Maeve. And, you know, we capture something special when you hear the real relationship between them. It's a little bit more work for Jean to set up the microphones and make sure everybody's in not kind of stepping on each other, but I think there's something kind of magical about that. We've recorded all our features like that. So the ones that I've been directing or co-directing have been like that. So I think there's something special in the performance when you record the actors not in the booth but in the round, as it were.
One of the amazing things that I remember that came from the team in Peace Rouge was the Wolf Vision sound as well. The sound design for Wolf Vision, when we're inside Robin's head and we hear this this kind of like it's almost claustrophobic and expanded at the same time. Like, you know, you hear like some of Robin's heartbeat underneath, and there's this kind of like phaser effect going on. That's one of my favorite bits of the sound design. Anyway.
Kind of synergistic, or whatever the word is. You know, in synesthesia. You know, whenever you see sounds and hear visuals and stuff, and it was those sequences were so strange because already so much work had gone into the visuals to make Wolf Vision, but then it went to another level again when the guys in Peace Rouge took it and layered in, you know, how the world would seem to a person who suddenly finds themselves with these amazing hearing, like they can hear things. And we had to layer the wolf's barks under the voice so that we could hear that they were barking to the average person, but to each other they were speaking. So that was really nicely done too.
Did you take inspiration from anything in particular, Sebastien?
For this sequence? No,
LSD.
Because not really. Because in an animated movie, I never see this kind of sequence, you know. So it was the first time. So I think we have this kind of sequence in an animated movie, you know. So it was a great challenge because we to create this kind of sequence, you know.
Like a prototype.
But that's something that Tom and Ross wanted at the beginning, right? They wanted to have the like a real-time translation of
Robin's voice, and the translation of Robin with a wolf voice.
Sounds, and actually we at the beginning we didn't want it to be like ridiculous. It sounds funny, but here I think we had a good balance between.
I think we have a good balance and we have good filters. I think the sequence worked really well. I am proud of this.
What I'm always amazed about is how much the sound brings at the end. Like Merlin didn't really exist in terms of having a voice, and so much more personality whenever whoever made the sounds in Peace Rouge, they really brought a lot of personality to that character with the bird sounds.
That was Axel's job here.
Access Station,
our co-sound editor here, and he started from scratch. He just had some hawk sounds and falcon sounds and other bird sounds. To be honest, they're not only the
falcon.
Yeah, falcon.
It's impossible. We have not enough vocabulary, you know. So we need to use all the bird of prey we can have.
Yeah.
And pitch, combine, modify the sound, and keep it real.
Actually, the animation and all the expression of the character helps us a lot because we need a base to to create those emotions, even if in a bird songs or things like that.
And the idea was Robin and Merlin have conversation together, you know, and they understand each other like human to human, you know, friend to friend.
But you wouldn't believe the level of detail of heated discussions we had about just how much expression that bird should have. So it worked out okay.
Well, I wonder if you could go into that, actually, into the design of Merlin, Tom and Ross, like, you know, finding that line.
Don't bring that up again, Robert. Robert, that's in the past, and we're okay now. We really have to.
It's like opening up an old wound. I'm going to start crying here. But no, way back. I mean, like in very early developments, Tom had a watercolor sketch that he did of Merlin up on the wall, and it didn't really change from that a whole lot. Like there was one of the characters that didn't go through a massive transformation. I mean, when Federico came on board, you had to go at nearly every character in the whole film, Fede, didn't you? But you didn't have to change Merlin all that much, no?
No, it was great.
A lot of work. Sandra did a lot of work, and then Sif Savory was an amazing young intern, and she was just perfect for bird animation. And so, honestly, I think that my original design, even after Sandra worked on it, seemed a little stiff. But when Sif took it, she was able to use the same design, but find a way to make it really feel like a lively little bird. And she was the one who made the options, like we said, how cartoony is it? Like the Scooby-Doo of birds? It's definitely not the Bugs Bunny of birds, and it's definitely not an absolutely realistic. And we kind of played with this before in previous movies, like with Pangerbon the cat in The Secret of Kells and Coo the dog in Song of the Sea. We had pretty cartoony, but with Merlin we didn't want to get too far into it, because we knew we had Wolfwalkers who were literally people level intellects in wolf bodies. So the animals had to stay a little closer to the animal world and not be too human, as it were. So we had to kind of find that exact place, and with the team we did, thankfully.
Yeah, otherwise you might be throwing up questions of like what other animals in this universe are like
is
do
Merlin,
have human minds?
Is Merlin a hawk walker, like Lady Hawk? Is it actually Michelle Pfeiffer, and she's transformed into a hawk?
That's the next film, Hawk Walker. That's
There's a whole franchise there.
All right, thank you once again, everyone, for tuning in. I'd like to thank the panelists, the production team, for participating in the panel. I'd like to say thank them for this fantastic film. We hope that you can see Wolfwalkers soon, and we'd like to leave you with a trailer from Wolfwalkers.
Wolf, wolf, hunt them far and yonder.
The forest is brimming with wolves. It's my job to hunt them down, not yours.
But we could hunt them together. Wolves, bears, dragons even.
She's one of them Wolfwalkers.
Wolfwalkers?
Wait! The ones that can talk to wolves with some wild magic.
You can come out now. We can smell ya. You stink. You're a wolfwalker. You're a wolf when you sleep. What? A girl when you're awake. Robin, something's happened to me. Yeah, I can see that. It's flippin' great. You're a wolf now. Be a wolf. The woods are getting smaller every day.
These wolves, they're just beasts.
Tonight, we put an end to this. I promise your mother I'd keep you safe.